Y'all, the night took a turn no one expected at Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta. Season 12, Episode 15. Lights glittered, music thumped, and the party looked like any other episode. Laughter, drinks, cameras ready to catch every unpredictable second. But tension had been creeping in under the surface, and when two men finally collided, it detonated. Lil Scrappy, calm one moment and stone-faced the next, rose up and slapped Chaotic clean across the face. The sound cut through the room like a shotgun blast. The whole set froze. Security moved instantly. Producers shouted into walkies and cast members covered their mouths in shock. This was no stage twist for ratings. This was raw, unfiltered reality aired live through 1,000 lenses. The slap shifted everything. The energy, the loyalties, the night's direction. People who had been joking seconds earlier went quiet. Smiles vanished. Scrappy's chest heaved, eyes burning with something that looked more like wounded pride than anger. Chaotic staggered, hand to cheek, with a stunned grin that didn't reach his eyes. Phones rose, fan pages captured it first, and hashtags ignited across platforms before anyone could decide what to do. The producers debated cutting. Others begged to keep rolling. One moment turned an episode into a cultural event, and fans divided in real time. The question that rippled through every conversation was simple. What finally crossed the line? This single sharp act didn't just end a fight, it started a war. And Atlanta watched as the fuse lit. Fans argued online, and the reunion would never feel the same again tonight. Weeks of simmering tension had set the stage long before that explosive slap. It began as light jabs and playful shade during group scenes, jokes the cameras framed as entertainment. But beneath those laughs, something sharper lurked. Chaotic's humor often arrived with a smirk that hit a cutting edge. What seemed playful to some felt personal to Scrappy. Over time, Chaotic pushed harder. References to Scrappy's relationships, sly digs about his money, and casual comments that landed like small stones against a brittle shield. Scrappy, known to absorb blows in silence, smiled on camera while his jaw tightened off camera. Friends noticed the change. Producers noticed the change. The air around them grew taut. Pride runs deep in Atlanta's circles. Respect is currency. For Scrappy, those jokes weren't just words. They were wounds. Shared history and old loyalties made the fracture sting more. They'd worked stages together, shared stories, and once counted each other as allies. As the barbs increased, loyalty eroded. Castmates whispered. Side eyes multiplied. Tension threaded through confessionals and group shots in ways editors couldn't fully erase. Producers tried to manage seating, to space them apart at events, but that only made the pressure cook hotter. Silence from Scrappy began to signal more than restraint. It meant readiness to respond. Two strong personalities, both protective of reputation, collided. Every event after felt like a test. By episode 15, the air between them wasn't simply tense. It was dangerous. The smallest word could spark an eruption, and when the fuse finally burned, it wasn't about one joke alone. It was about everything left unsaid, every bruise to pride, every silent moment where respect was lost. Rumors and small incidents stacked like tinder, a mocking after-party clip Chaotic shared with a smug caption, an awkward confessional where Scrappy's jaw tightened and the laugh sounded hollow, and a leaked DM exchange suggesting private insults. Friends tried to intervene. Some told Chaotic to tone it down. Others urged Scrappy to ignore the bait, but pride often drowned out advice. Podcast hosts and fan pages dissected every moment, amplifying tension and priming viewers for a blow-up. Producers noticed the pressure and quietly revised seating and security plans, aware the cameras might capture more than they bargained for. Cast members began picking sides or choosing silence to avoid fallout. By episode 15, the public felt the heat. The atmosphere was charged not because of a single comment, but because months of slights had stacked into an inevitable explosion. The slap was simply the visible result of that slow burn. The party arrived as a buzzing, cinematic scene, strobe lights slicing through smoke, a DJ's bass thumping like a heartbeat, and a VIP section roped off where the real faces gathered, and every whisper felt amplified. Cameras dotted the room like small suns, capturing reactions, drinks, and every flicker of body language. Chaotic walked in loud and magnetic, laughing as if the whole night belonged to him, chain glinting, grin sharp. He worked the crowd with practiced ease, cracking jokes, nudging people, and turning small slights into punchlines that made the cameras lean in. Around him, the VIP table hummed with polished chatter, glasses clinking, security scanning angles, and producers mouthing notes into headsets, quietly bracing for what reality might throw at them. In the center of that framed chaos sat Scrappy, a contrast in black, quiet, and unreadable, chin tucked and eyes scanning. He held himself small but taut, shoulders squared like a coiled spring. At first, he let Chaotic's noise pass, smiles thin, head nods stiff. But the camera caught the little tells. A jaw that tightened, fingers drumming the rim of a glass, a breath held a beat too long. Chaotic kept pushing, testing limits with jokes that in any other room would earn laughs, but here landed like stones. Then, under the shimmer of party lights, the line was crossed. Chaotic tossed a remark about Scrappy's personal business, something sharp about his relationships and reputation, a jab at masculinity delivered with that smug half-smile. The room shifted. Laughter died and eyes snapped toward Scrappy like compasses finding north. Security, who had been casually stationed nearby, straightened. Producers exchanged looks that said cut or capture. Phones lifted in unison as chatter thinned and the air grew smaller. What had been a playful roast snapped into something dangerous in an instant. That single comment turned the evening from awkward to volatile, and everyone in the VIP felt the charge, knowing a spark had found its tinder. Whispers ricocheted as cast members edged closer or looked away, deciding whether to step into the blast radius. A producer hissed into a headset about liability while another muttered, "This was television gold." And in a heartbeat, alliances formed and wagers silently placed on who would make the next move, and editors flagged the clip for review. The slap arrived in a single, devastating motion, fast, precise, and impossible to ignore. Scrappy's hand extended with a cold determination. Not a reflex, but a chosen strike that cut the space between them. The sound was brutal, a sharp pop that the room felt in its bones, and every mic picked up with brutal clarity. Time seemed to stretch. Heads turned, laughter died, and the camera zeroed in as if gravity had shifted toward that moment. Chaotic's cheek reddened instantly. His chain swung, his jaw went slack, and for a heartbeat he looked genuinely stunned. Lenses clicked, operators swore softly, and producers flinched at the clear audio bleeding through their monitors. Security moved like a trained current, hands gripping arms to separate the two before bodies could collide further. Scrappy stood rigid, chest heaving, breath visible under the studio lights. His face held a look that mixed regret with resolve. Microphones had captured the strike in raw detail. No edit would make it softer. No cut would erase the sound. The room held a strange vacuum of silence right after, a collective intake of breath that lasted like a held note. Then chaos returned in waves, shouts, footsteps, the rustle of cameras adjusting, urgent whispers into walkie-talkies. Phones were already up. Clips were being captured from angles the producers didn't control, and social feeds began to spark. Audience gasped, some covering mouths, others rising from seats in disbelief. A few staffers reached for phones to log the moment, while others whispered legal exposure and network fallout. The slap would haunt edits, fuel headlines, and define the night in a way no scripted twist could, echoing for years to come. Echoing for years to come. The seconds after the slap were pure chaos, a rush of shocked gasps that snapped into motion as security and crew reacted. Security moved fast, separating bodies and pushing people back before a full brawl could erupt. Producers shouted into headsets, split between two instincts: kill the feed or keep rolling. Some screamed cut the cameras. Others yelled keep filming, this is television gold. Cameramen kept lenses trained while phones in the crowd already recorded close, unauthorized clips. Chaotic stood stunned, hand to his cheek, eyes wide like someone jolted awake, his grin gone thin. He tried a forced laugh that didn't settle the room. Cast members reacted. Some rushed to separate and de-escalate. Others pulled out phones to document every second. A producer pushed to the center, ordering security to calm both parties. while another whispered legal concerns about on-set violence. PR staff and lawyers typed feverishly, preparing statements before footage review. Cameras captured every angle left unblocked. Sound engineers flinched as the SLAPS pop replayed in monitors. The capture versus cut debate played out. One assistant covered a lens. Another refused and kept shooting. Producers argued whether airing the hit would ruin the brand or boost ratings beyond repair. An assistant ordered staff to isolate witnesses, preserve footage, and log timestamps for legal review. Scrappy stood pinned by his entourage, chest heavy, breathing quick, jaw clenched. His silence read like a warning. This wasn't over. Whispers rose in the crowd. Did he mean to do that? Was it staged? The room split into factions. Those who wanted the moment buried and those who saw it as the defining shot of the season. Audience gasped, some covering mouths, others standing phones held high. Stage managers signaled urgent warnings. Walkie-talkies crackled with terse reports. A veteran producer muttered about insurance and network risk, while a newer assistant eyed the viral potential with calculation. The air smelled of spilled drinks and fear. In those frantic minutes, choices were made about who to protect, what to release, and how to control a narrative already leaking in unauthorized clips. Within minutes, a blurry phone clip ignited social media. Fan pages and blogs posted snippets with urgent captions, and the clip spread across X, TikTok, and Instagram like wildfire. On X threads exploded. Timestamps, frame grabs, and hot takes analyzed every moment. TikTok creators looped the slap and stutter edits and countdowns, driving millions of views in hours. Memes followed, slow-motion stills, reaction GIFs, and remixed audio that replayed the pop endlessly. Fan accounts framed narratives quickly, Team Scrappy or Team Chaotic, and followers rushed to pick sides and flood comments. Influencers launched live streams offering breathless play-by-play while podcasters cued instant reaction episodes. Hosts invited insiders to speculate on motives, legal risks, and whether the network would air the footage. Hashtags organized fast. Scrappy Slap trended, spawning dozens of spin-offs that amplified the moment. Reaction videos multiplied. Slow reactions, breakdowns, expert takes on body language and intent. Within an hour, the incident dominated trending lists and entertainment feeds, moving from private clip to cultural event. Advertisers hesitated, and PR teams drafted statements to control damage, while networks debated whether to show the raw footage. Legal commentators explained potential civil consequences, shifting the conversation toward accountability. Some creators offered context threads, compiling past slights and confessionals to reconstruct the buildup. Yet velocity ruled. Clips were edited, remixed, and reshared until every angle found a life across platforms. The initial leak set off a chain reaction: viral edits, memes, heated debates, and fan tournaments of opinion that kept the story alive. Creators monetized the moment: merch drops, affiliate links, and premium reaction channels charging for extended breakdowns, while fan polls and betting threads predicted the next move, fueling endless speculation and engagement and mounting pressure. In the space of a few hours, public opinion polarized, reputations shifted, and the slap became a headline that would drive coverage for days to come. The production office convened in an emergency meeting as clips began circulating. Executives, showrunners, legal, and PR crowding around a single screen to triage fallout. Lawyers listed risks crisply: assault claims, on-set liability, union rules, and potential civil suits if footage aired without proper review. PR pushed rapid messaging. They drafted holding statements and monitored social trends while trying to calm sponsors and affiliates. Producers argued the brutal truth: controversy drives ratings, while counsel warned that airing raw violence could invite lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny. Network standards demanded careful review. Compliance urged an internal audit before any decision to broadcast or promote the clip. A central fight emerged: bury the moment to shield talent and brand, or monetize contextually with legal safeguards at the cost of reputational damage. Security and production ops were ordered to secure raw media, preserve device evidence, and log chain of custody for any leaked clips. Editors were instructed to catalog timestamps, camera angles, and metadata, while compliance officers flagged risky audio or explicit content. Cameras and phone footage were treated as evidence, each angle assessed for authenticity and legal vulnerability. Counsel requested witness statements and incident reports. Producers were told to freeze any authorized posts pending legal guidance. Meetings stretched as teams balanced liability with commercial opportunity. Every hour, the clip spread further across platforms, making delay costly. Major advertisers demanded immediate reassurances, with some pausing buys until the network clarified facts and safety steps. Meanwhile, staff morale dropped. Veteran producers debated ethics, uneasy about monetizing violence and fearful that silence might also be seen as complicity. Scrappy's immediate response was silence. He vanished from feeds and appearances, letting absence send a louder message than any hot take could. His inner circle moved quickly, issuing cautious comments that supported him while avoiding direct attacks or legal exposure. In private, he replayed the footage, studying angles and timing, trying to gauge public perception and editorial edits that might define the moment. At a small studio, he watched clips with close associates, noting how producers might splice reactions into a damaging narrative. Friends and advisors debated strategy, issue a firm statement now, or maintain silence deliberately to avoid feeding the frenzy and admitting fault. Legal counsel urged restraint, warning that impulsive posts could be used in potential civil suits or network investigations. Instead of loud rebuttals, selective leaks surfaced, cryptic lives and curated posts suggesting context without offering full testimony. The controlled drip aimed to protect reputation while limiting ammunition available to critics and tabloids eager for soundbites. Silence became a double-edged sword. It projected strength to some and suspicion to others, allowing narratives to multiply in the void. Fans and pundits read the quiet differently, some framing it as dignity, others as calculated avoidance, and debate raged across platforms. By morning, conversations about motive, intent, and possible legal consequences had replaced immediate shock, shifting the spotlight from the strike to its aftermath. Scrappy weighed each move like chess, balancing image and legal risk while choosing if and when to speak. Chaotic moved fast, seizing control of the story with a public sprint that mixed bravado and calculation. Within hours, he launched IG Lives, hoodie low and sunglasses on, turning the faint bruise into visual proof while he narrated a polished account that painted him as strategic rather than weak. He laughed through clips, cracked jokes that doubled as rebuttals, and dared the audience to call him soft while refusing to retaliate on camera. Podcast hosts booked him immediately. In those interviews, he framed the slap as evidence of his restraint, insisting he chose the smarter path by avoiding escalation. Each appearance was choreography, a glossy explanation, a wink to fans, a reminder that silence can be power, and that public composure wins long-term. Chaotic posted curated snippets, live reactions, controlled confessionals, and reaction edits that invited sympathy while undermining Scrappy's sudden aggression. He invited analysts to parse body language and replayed the strike in slow motion to highlight intent, asking viewers aloud whether the hit justified criminal or civil claims. Influencers amplified his angle, stitching clips, adding dramatic captions, and building a narrative that cast Chaotic as savvy, media literate, and unfairly targeted. Even his jokes became strategic assets, memeable lines that circulated as rallying cries. Merch and patron-only content monetized attention while keeping fans invested. Through constant visibility, he reshaped the conversation from violence to victimhood and tactical restraint, forcing the public to consider nuance. Chaotic's counterplay was surgical. It diverted immediate outrage into a longer debate about respect, reputation, and who truly controlled the storyline and legal implications too. After the slap, the story followed them into public spaces where two confrontations in quick succession set the next terms. The first unfolded at a charity event that should have been low-key but felt electric as both men arrived. Scrappy came early, hood low and tight with his circle. Chaotic entered later, loud and deliberate, making sure cameras caught him. Producers had not scheduled this moment, but their crews pivoted. lenses finding faces while managers signaled security to hold a gentle perimeter. When chaotic moved in, the polite murmur of donors dropped, and a terse exchange of words quickly escalated into a public test of wills. Security stepped between them, hands firm, but phones were already raised and a shaky clip hit fan pages within minutes. The charity footage framed both men in stark relief, one calm and contained, the other performative and provocative, and audiences debated motive within hours. Producers then staged a mediation, billed as controlled reconciliation but engineered to extract confrontation without allowing outright violence. They booked a neutral room, set lights for TV drama, and whispered prompts that would needle at pride and reputation. Both men arrived prepared to perform control, yet the thin veneer cracked under pointed questions and old grievances resurfacing. The mediator steered, but producers cued reaction shots and slow zooms to maximize perceived tension for editors later. Security stayed visible as a buffer, signaling risk while keeping the moment camera safe, and rehearsal clips leaked hinting at raw behind-the-scenes friction. Each public face-off produced new angles for edits, new sound bites for tabloids, and fresh footage for social remixers. Leaked snippets and polished clips fed each other. Raw takes lent credibility, while edited cuts framed narrative arcs, multiplying audience engagement. Fans parsed eye contact, posture, and tone as if counting points in a match. Influencers stitched highlights into judgment threads. The charity collision and the mediated sit-down refused resolution. They enlarged the rivalry, gave producers more spectacle to mine, and guaranteed the feud would drive headlines long after the initial strike. Legal teams circled, sponsors watched nervously, and the network prepared contingency plans while viewers voted with views, comments, and time-stamped outrage across platforms into late night. The reunion stage felt like a pressure cooker, lights hotter than usual, and a live audience buzzing with hungry anticipation as producers wheeled cameras and checked mics. Fans in the crowd whispered about the slap. Social feeds chimed, and the whole studio vibrated in expectation. The host walked on with practiced calm, but her jaw tightened when she saw the cast seating, every chair a potential flashpoint. They opened with small talk, testing the waters with light questions, but the underlying tension hummed so loud it became part of the sound design. Smiles were thin and laughter clipped. The audience sensed a story ready to erupt, and the energy moved like static through the rows. Producers whispered timing notes into headsets while stage managers signaled security to stay visible but unobtrusive. Every camera was cued to capture reaction shots, slow zooms, and lingering close-ups that editors would later stitch into narrative. The host attempted mediation with measured tone, offering each cast member space to speak, but her efforts often collided with clipped answers and simmering glares. When the conversation edged toward the party and the slap, the crowd leaned forward. The studio felt collective breath held. Chest-to-chest moments happened slowly and then all at once. Standing up gestures, pointed fingers, a mic turned toward a snarling confession that felt less like resolution and more like invitation. Security closed ranks quickly enough to prevent fists, but not quick enough to stop words that acted like blows. Heat, threats, and promises caught on sensitive mics. You could hear whispers that crossed into audible warnings, and producers signaled for cutaways while camera ops obeyed the opposite instinct, keeping lenses fixed on the brewing storm. Audience reactions punctuated the back and forth, gasps, shouts, and a few cries, feeding the room's momentum. The host tried to steer, but each question seemed to pour fuel on a slow burn, and the reunion's tempo shifted toward confrontation. Editors later would call it television theater at its most combustible: raw emotion, mic-captured threats, and split-second security separations that prevented disaster, but guaranteed this would be a must-see event that replayed on feeds and water coolers for weeks. When the segment ended, there was no tidy closure, only a stage littered with heavy silence, bruised pride, and the knowing that the live showdown had irrevocably changed the season's trajectory. When the discussion turned toward the party incident, the room changed. Cameras angled for confrontation, audience leaned forward, and even producers who had trained for crisis. looked like spectators watching history unfold before their screens with stunned faces. The aftermath ricocheted across entertainment spheres and everyday timelines, turning a single slap into a cultural moment that reshaped conversation for days as ratings spiked and feeds filled with commentary. Late-night hosts referenced the clip, online columns parsed motives, and long-form podcasters booked panels to debate accountability versus spectacle. Fan factions hardened into camps, picking sides like sports fans. Some defended Scrappy as a man defending honor. Others framed Chaotic as the smarter player who refused to escalate. Memes proliferated, reaction GIFs, slowed down frames, and captioned stills that turned a personal blow into bite-sized cultural currency. Influencers amplified narratives, creating mini-series of reaction episodes, and paid content that monetized outrage while offering analysis. Producers counted dollars quietly as viewership climbed, and streaming demand rose for the episode details. Network execs fielded frantic calls from advertisers and affiliates balancing brand safety against unmatched engagement. Journalists turned to expert guests to dissect body language and legal implications, while legal commentators explained potential civil claims and protocol for on-set incidents. Meanwhile, creators stitched clips into remixes and countdowns that kept the moment trending across platforms, converting shock into prolonged attention. The business side moved quickly. PR teams drafted statements, sponsors asked for reassurances, and social teams leaned into moderation strategies to control misinformation. At the same time, the cultural conversation broadened to discuss performative masculinity, reality TV ethics, and responsibility in an era where every private move can become a public verdict. The incident fueled think pieces and op-eds, divided viewers, and created new talking points for creators and critics alike. Producers celebrated the ratings bump with a nervous laugh while grappling with moral discomfort. Networks prepared legal packages and content advisories to distance themselves from liability. The feud became content currency, a cliffhanger that guaranteed clicks and commentary, a serialized controversy that would pay dividends in tune-ins and subscriptions. As clips continued to circulate and analysts parsed every frame, the show closed the episode on an unresolved note, a deliberate tease that promised more fallout and left audiences hungry for the next reveal, ensuring that viewers would tune back in to watch the story further unravel. Network executives tallied immediate spikes in engagement, and advertisers recalibrated placement strategies accordingly and revenue.